Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. After speaking with HubSpot a few days ago on this podcast, it's really opened my eyes up to the value of simply sharing a startup story. Because I have received a few emails about the HubSpot episode and also a recent podcast with Clay Mask, who shared his story about the moment that he was close to throwing in the towel, but kept on going. And the general theme of the kind of emails that I've been getting are, thanks for sharing, Neil. You have no idea just how much I needed to hear that story. And I think that is because we're so used to hearing success stories or the end result and end up almost measuring ourselves against that end result. But of course, the real value is in the doing, the learning, and that grind. The success takes a little time. So today I invited Chris Ronzio onto the show, who is the founder of Trainual and also organised Chaos. And he has enjoyed an inspirational startup story that should inspire you too. I mean, spoiler alert, but my favourite part is how he decided to leave behind his consulting business. It was a big, brave decision and focused fully on Trainual. And he took it to a $1 million in revenue and 10 employees in just a year. But enough from me and revealing way too many spoilers. I better get out of here quick before I reveal anything else. So enough for me. Buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way to Phoenix, Arizona, so we can speak with Chris Ronzio, who will share his story and also the great work that he's doing with Trainual. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. So my name is Chris Ronzio. The company is Trainual, which, as the name would suggest, is an online training manual. So what we do is help companies explain all of the how-tos of their business to their employees so that everyone does things the same way as they're growing.
You make it sound so simple. It really isn't, is it?
It sounds simple, but there's a lot going on behind the scenes. So I'm happy to unpack it with you.
Fantastic. Well, before we do unpack that, we will have people listening who are at various stages of their own startup journey, and some will be building a side hustle as we speak. But I want to take you back in time, if I can, to where you first made that giant leap to leave behind your consulting business and focus fully on Trainual. I mean, can you still remember the nerves and what was going through your mind when you made that leap?
Oh, I do. They were terrible. So, we were fortunate that Trainual came out of the consulting business, and we had been working hands-on with small businesses that were growing quickly and needed a place to document their processes. So we built Trainual initially for us, for the consulting firm, so that we'd have some intellectual property of our own. And as more companies began to use it and more people were referred to it, we had a market testing phase that just naturally occurred through the consulting business. So I think we were fortunate there, but I had gotten to the point where I had the confidence in the product and I knew that that was really the thing that could scale. So the decision was difficult because the consulting business was, by outside standards, very successful. We had a nice little team, over $1 million in business. It had grown to, a real company, a respectable company, but I knew that what we were doing was just trading our time for our services. And so the epiphany that I had was that we had this specialization in business operations and in creating standard operating procedures. And instead of doing it for every company and them paying us for our time, we could flip that expertise into marketing content and empower other companies to do it for themselves, and then just use Trainual as the vehicle and the revenue producing asset of the company. So it was a big shift, but one we committed to wholeheartedly.
And they do say, of course, all the best things in life are on the other side of fear, which you broke through that barrier. But can you tell me more about how you, after making that leap, you took it to a $1 million in revenue and 10 employees in only 12 months? I mean, that's a phenomenal achievement.
Well, thank you. So when we first launched it, the first month we had 27 companies on the product, and all of those companies had come through our consulting work. So it was very much an internal product. So taking that into a business with now over 1,000 companies in 70 plus countries around the world was definitely a feat. And it was, we have marketing to thank for that, and podcasts like yours. So I appreciate the opportunity to share the story. For us, it was an iterative approach. We started off first in our small circle here in Scottsdale, Arizona. We had a launch event, which we invited everyone we knew to. We got a little bit of press coverage. We took and videos, and we used that to tell our story online. So the next thing we did was a product hunt launch in February of 2018. That helped get some early adopters and some influencers on board with the product, and we developed some good relationships there. We did a stretch of podcasts like this one just to share the story and the methodology behind the product, and then we really dug in to the paid advertising once we understood the pain point of what businesses were going through and why they were purchasing our product. So we got heavily involved into digital ads, and then that's just kind of fueled the growth to this point.
Now, I am conscious that we've spoken a lot about your journey with Trainual, but some people listening will be completely new to what it is. So can I just ask that you offer a brief overview of the kind of problems it solves for your customers, and also, of course, what makes it unique from other solutions out there?
Absolutely. So when we were doing the consulting, I looked at the companies we worked with. It was over 150 companies, and I saw that there were some companies that were scaling very quickly and others that couldn't grow so fast. So the difference I realized was the companies that could scale had figured out how to consistently do something. They weren't experimenting and inventing new products or services, but they had found their niche and they were consistent about how they did it. And once they could do it, if they could document it or just write down the steps in order that they could clearly communicate to someone else, then they could delegate it. So that do it, document it, delegate it became my mantra and what we built into the product with Trainual. So Trainual, if you're at a big company, would be most closely related to a learning management software. It's a way to deliver your methodology, your systems and processes, and make sure that you're tracking it as people go through it. But for most of our customers, they're in a place where they're documenting their business with Google Docs or Word Docs or Dropbox folders. And you can only take that so far. So when documents can't train people, and when you don't know if you've got any accountability, you don't know if people have read the newest version, you don't know if everyone's doing things the same way, then you need some level of training and accountability, and that's where we fit in. So we fit right between the documents, the online collaborative document systems, and an enterprise learning management system, and help small businesses to medium-sized business deliver that training.
Now, I know you've got a wealth of knowledge and experience with how to document, develop, and scale business processes, but can you also share some of those insights with everyone listening?
Yeah, of course. So when you think about documenting the processes in your business, it can be daunting. And that's what we hear from a lot of companies is they're not sure where to start. So the first thing to recognize is that you're not creating your processes, you're really just collecting them. They exist. And so if you empower your team to just write down the steps of the actions that they're taking today, you'll before long have a playbook for your company. And that's really what we're doing with our product is just making it easier to capture and collect what you do. So one of the things I would recommend is that as you do something, as you explain a process to someone, as you type up an email or do it yourself on the computer, click record and record your screen while you're doing it, or copy and paste that email you wrote to someone so that it can serve as a reference for the next person. It's really just collecting those things as you go. And then the next recommendation I would make is that everyone has a different role and responsibility in a business, and to build your entire manual can take some time. But the one commonality that every business has is an orientation, a new employee, they're welcome to the company. And so if you can start by welcoming that person and explaining the context behind your business, that is the most important and the highest ROI piece of training that you can come up with because it applies to everyone.
Now, when I was doing a bit of research about you, I quickly learned that your mission has always been just to simply help others. And I love that. And that's something that really resonated with me and half the reason I do this podcast too. But I'm curious, has that always been a big part of who you are?
Absolutely. I love when I've listened to your podcast before, how you connect people and you say that your mission is to help others as well. For me, it's, I recognize that when you start a business as an entrepreneur or as a leader or as an early team, you start that business to make an impact in others' lives, in your own life, to free up time, to be able to empower you to do the things that you really love and to spend your time doing what you really want to do. And that's what it's all about. So when I was consulting, it was all about how do we make a business easier? How do we make small business easier so that the founders don't have to spend 80 to 100 hours every week working in their business? And if you can create systems that make the work simpler, then everyone's happier. The employees are happier, the entrepreneurs are happier. And that's always been my mission, is to create simple systems. So with Trainual, it's just taking that one step further, in that if you get your business out of your brain and you unpack everything that's up in your head and explain it to other people, then you can truly grow within your organization and train others to do what you did yesterday so that you can tackle what you want to do tomorrow.
Fantastic. Now, I did recently visit Phoenix, and I was able to soak up some of the amazing startup and technology vibe in the region, and especially how the area just seems to be thriving by embracing technology rather than fearing it. I mean, I was only there for 5 days and I felt it. But is that something that everyone feels there at the moment?
I definitely feel it. I think It's an amazing community. I grew up in Boston, and Boston is very different culturally from here. And when I moved out west, there was this sense of, everything is new. The buildings are new. They're paving new roads in the desert here in Phoenix, and there's so many new startups, and there's new people that are relocating here because the weather is nice, and so everything is very enterprising, and I love that aspect of the valley.
Funny you should say that you're from Boston, because I was speaking to somebody from Boston that was out there as well, and was talking about the weather and how in June, July, August it can reach 130, 140. And he said he would gladly have that for 3 months a year than have a snow shovel for 3 months of the year. So as you're from Boston, is that something you subscribe to too?
Absolutely. You everybody that moves out here from a colder climate says you don't have to shovel sunshine. So I hear that quite a bit.
Cool. So what is next for you, and indeed Trainual? Is there anything else you can share with us today about that road ahead?
Yeah. So like I said, the mission is to get your business out of your brain. That's what we're trying to do, is to empower people. Whether you are the business owner, the founder, the entrepreneur, the leader, the manager, or just someone that is a brand new hire to the organization, if you want to grow within the company, you have to be willing to let go of what you do today and train someone else to do that for you. So the training is really the gateway to growth within an organization. And we want to make it as easy as possible to capture the knowledge within the company. So short of hooking up wires to someone's brain and automatically reading their mind, we're developing everything we can to just make that process simple.
And finally, before I let you go, you've been on an incredible journey and enjoyed fantastic success. But is there anything that you wish you'd known when you first started out that maybe you could pass on down to somebody at the beginning of their startup journey?
Absolutely. So I never thought of myself as a marketer. If you had asked me a few years ago, I would have said I'm the operations guy. I can hire the marketer or hire the agency, but I think to grow a business, you truly have to be a marketer and to embrace that, because the message that you have for your company is there's only so many people you can tell in your own backyard. You have to be comfortable sharing that message and speaking about it. So everyone should think of themselves as a marketer.
Well, if we have awoken the curiosity in anybody listening, can you just help point them in the right direction of where they can find you guys online, and maybe even contact a member of your team if they've got any other questions after listening to us today?
Sure. We'd love to tell you more about Trainual, and you can find us online at trainual.com. That's just TRAINUAL.com. Or you can connect with me, Chris Ronzio, on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, or anywhere else that you can find me online.
Excellent. Well, I always say at the end of every episode that technology works best when it brings people together, but you're using technology to simply help others, and there's something incredibly beautiful about that. But more than anything, just a big thank you for taking the time and sharing that story with me today. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Neil. I really appreciate the invitation.
I hope Chris doesn't mind me saying this, but he has got a great voice for radio and podcasts. I even get the feeling that he will have his own podcast one day. But let me tell you something, he doesn't have a great face for radio like me. He's much more suited for TV. But seriously, what a great guy and what an inspirational story. And if you're listening to this episode, working on a side hustle and waiting for that right moment to go full time on it, remember Chris's story of bravely making that leap and focusing fully on Trainual. And as a result, he took it to a $1 million in revenue and 10 employees in just 1 year. And I also love how they're solving very complex business problems and ensuring everyone works the same way, but making it look incredibly easy. And it's easy to see how they used to be just small business process consultants, then after helping out over 150 businesses all around the US build bigger teams, open more locations, and create more profits, they've been able to turn their do it, document it, delegate it method and put it into an app that finally has made scaling up incredibly easy. Fantastic stuff. So if you are a Trainual customer and you've got some insights or expertise to share on that, or you have your own startup story and you'd love just to share it on this show, remember, you can email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, Twitter @NeilCHughes, Instagram @NeilCHughes too. I'm the easiest man in the world to find. And also keep those ratings coming in on whatever platform you listen to this show. More than anything, if you found today's episode valuable, please share it on to someone that you think will find it inspiring and find value in it too. So a big thank you to Chris Ronzio for being an all-round great guy, guest and potential podcast host. Sorry, that's my spidey sense going off again. And of course, an even bigger thank you to each and every one of you listening to this podcast in over 165 countries. You guys make this show too, so remember, keep those messages coming in. As for me, I'll return again tomorrow. I've got another great guest lined up for you. But all that's left for me to say is thanks for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.